probably going to hear tonight from the Congressman. But I can tell you that after 20 years of police experience, dealing with people in the main streets, 20 years of experience. Now, Linda's had many, many years of experience dealing with domestic violence firsthand. Even after all that experience and hearing many, many stories and seeing things firsthand that were very hard to deal with, I can tell you that Linda and I were moved and impacted by this story that you'll hear tonight. So much so that even before Congressman Burton's presentation was done, Linda and I were sitting next to each other. We almost bumped heads when we had the idea almost simultaneously that we had to have this man come to Marion again and tell the story in a setting like this one where more people could hear it and could be impacted by it like we were. So, with that said, I'll speak no more in order that you may hear the story from this mind of this fine man. And so on behalf of Mayor Siegel and the Mayor's Commission on Domestic Violence, it's my distinct pleasure and quite an honor to introduce Congressman Dan Burton.
First of all, I want to say what a great choir you have here, Pastor. The pastor lead? I guess he heard I was going to talk. Anyhow, oh, there he is back there in the back. You have a great choir, and we appreciate very much you allowing us to use your facility, your church tonight. You know, I went to the Cincinnati Bible Seminary when I was younger, and they couldn't find people to preach in some of these little bitty churches in southern Indiana and northern Kentucky and southern Ohio. So the ministerial students, like myself, we go out and preach at these little churches. We preach the morning and the evening service. And I used to always think what it would be like to talk to this many people at once, because I usually only had 5 or 10 people there in the audience, or 20. So it's nice to be with you tonight. And it's nice to think about the good old days. I was in a choir once myself, and they kicked me out because I was always off key. So it's supposed to be funny, folks. Anyhow, let me first introduce Jonathan and Teresa on my staff. If you have any problems that we can help you with, Jonathan and Teresa, they're the ones. Teresa runs the office, and Jonathan's my mobile office operator. He does community relations, so we're very happy you guys are here. And I got to introduce my wife. Oh, go ahead, give me the flowers. I have to introduce my wife, Dr. Samia Burton. The reason I married her was not because she was real pretty and nice, because I wanted to have a doctor around all the time. Honey, would you stand up and say hi? I just want to give you a few figures before I start talking. We passed a bill which I co-sponsored, HRS 590, National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it passed overwhelmingly. And then we were able to pass a bill in July, HR 3093, which got $14 million to help with a number of these programs here and around the country. And I want to thank the people that put this thing together tonight. I really appreciate it very much. Where's my notes? There we go. I want to thank Linda Wills. Linda, thank you very much. You do a great job. She's a hard worker. The captain of the police department, he's a real caring guy. And Mayor Siegel, I understand the county prosecutor's here. Jim, where are you? There he is back there. He's the guy you need to talk to if you need to get some bad guy put away. And he'll do it. Councilman Nevels, where's he? Councilman Nevels, thank you very much for being here tonight. And Captain Pauly of the Sheriff's Department, representing the Sheriff, he's here too. Just wanted to say thank you to all of them for being here. And I want to thank all of you for being here. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who suffer domestic violence. And you never hear about it. I don't know how many times I've been in places where I've seen a woman beaten half to death, her face is all smashed in, and she keeps going back to this guy over and over again. And it's terrible. I talked to some ladies here tonight who suffered domestic violence. And you all share the same kind of feeling when you go through that. So tonight I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I didn't talk about it for 45 years, but I'll tell you a little bit about it tonight. The way I started talking about it was I was on the floor of the House one day, and they had a domestic violence bill before the House. And the ladies, congressmen were talking about, there weren't any men down there. I thought, well, maybe I would add a little bit to their debate discussion. And I talked a little bit about my background and my childhood. And can I have that water, honey? Thank you. I'm going to run out of voice. And I started talking on the floor of the House, and the more I got into it, the more I realized that this is something a lot of people ought to hear because people don't talk about it. So we went into great detail. And I was surprised that my colleagues, who I thought would probably look down on somebody that suffered domestic violence, really considered me in a higher esteem. And I was very surprised about that. And so, as a result, I decided I would start maybe talking about this around the country and to groups like you tonight. When I was 6 months old, my mother got married when she was 18. When I was 6 months old, my mom and father went to a movie. And I guess I was crying in the movie. And he took me out in the lobby, and Mom said when I came back, I was very quiet. When she got home that night to change my diapers, she said I was black and blue from my neck to my ankles. That's the kind of guy he was. That's the kind of guy there are around this country, a lot of them. And as I grew up, I saw more and more and more of this kind of violence. And it got worse and worse. I can remember when I was about 9 years old, 10 years old, we lived over at 251 South Emerson. I remember vividly. I slept upstairs. I would hear my mother getting beaten up in the middle of the night, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. And I would come downstairs to see what was going on, and he'd always say to me, if you don't want some of this, you better get back upstairs. I can remember when I went downstairs, and I would see my mother standing there, and him ripping her clothes off and having her stark naked, and then hitting her so hard, I thought he'd killed her. And it's not good for kids to see that. I was absolutely terrified of this man. He was 6'8", weighed about 275 pounds. My mother was 5'1.5". And one of the things I loved the most for was whenever he started to take on after me, this little bitty woman would stand between the two of us and took the blows from me. That's the kind of gal she was. She was a wonderful woman. And I miss her even today. My father beat her so badly that she would try desperately to get the neighbors to call the police. And she would throw a lamp or something through the window, and she'd get to the window and scream so loud that you could hear her at least a block or two away. And nobody ever came. The police didn't come, the neighbors didn't turn on their lights. I know they heard her, but nobody did anything. And that's one of the things that bothers me the most, is that people see domestic violence, they see it on the street, they hear it in their neighborhoods, and they don't do anything about it. And I think that's a crime, because if you see domestic violence, you hear about it, if you see a child being beaten or a woman being beaten, you need to report it to the police. You've got some very good police chiefs, and the police chiefs here in the Sheriff's Department's representing the prosecutor. You need to tell these people about it, because the only way it's going to stop is if people talk about it and get a hold of the law enforcement agencies.